ESPN has created a tiered ranking system for all the quarterbacks in FBS, all 136 of them. Where does Diego Pavia fall?
You are Locked On Vandy, your daily podcast on the Vanderbilt Commodores, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Yo, welcome into the Locked On Vandy podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Corey Burton. Thanks for making us part of your day. Thanks for tuning in. Shout out to you everydayers. And speaking of everydayers, on this day, on this episode, we get to compare Diego Pavia to his peers. ESPN has ranked all 136 quarterbacks and put them into a tiered ranking system. Pavia fell to tier 3. Is that accurate? What does it mean? Who's with him? What does that say about the season? How do we feel about that? We're going to talk about that in a second. Also in baseball, we get to shout out 2 players that received some pretty good accolades, and we get to find out what the secret was to the big turnaround and why the Vandy boys are poised now to make an Omaha-type run. I don't think it's too much of a secret as to why they made this big turnaround, but we get to find out officially why. We get to kind of uncover it a little bit, go behind the velvet rope, as you should say. So anyway, thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube as a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So, Diego Pavia, we love him, right? This is the list season, as Chris Gordy says on Locked On SEC. This is the list season. He said it on the Squad Show. We talk about all these lists all the time. Diego Pavia is on a list. Okay, this list is interesting. Okay, ESPN.com came out with, and I'll give you the writer. And the writer is, let me scroll back up to the top. It is David Hale. David Hale and the ESPN college team has ranked into tiers all of the quarterbacks in FBS, not FCS, FBS. So where does Diego Pavia fall? This is an interesting list. I really kind of enjoyed this. I haven't read the entire thing because I'm not going to read about all 136 quarterbacks. I may be a football nerd, but not quite that much of one. But here's kind of where he fell. It's really quarterback situations, but it's mostly about the starters and just kind of a little bit about the backups. First of all, I don't think Drew Dickey's going to be the backup. I think it's going to be Blaise Berlowitz. I think he's coming out of spring with that job. But here's the list that Diego Pavia or here's the company that he keeps. You have Josh Hoover, Ken Seals, who is still in college somehow. Diego Pavia, Drew Dickey, obviously. This is not ranked in any kind of order. But you have SMU with Kevin Jennings, Ty Hawkins, and Tyler Van Dyke, which is a playoff team, which we like. Navy with Blake Horvath and Braxton Woodson. Louisville with Miller Moss. It's an interesting pick there. Jalen Daniels at Kansas. Darian Mensah at Duke. And Talon Green at Arkansas with KJ Jackson. So here's the thing, man. This is an exciting group. The name of this tier, actually, he gave each tier a title as well. I didn't include that in the screenshot. But the tier is called Buckle Up, okay? And they have delivered every single one of these quarterbacks is electric. All right, love Blake Horvath. He has single-handedly kept Navy in a lot of games. I don't know about Baron Morton, Texas Tech. I'm not sure a whole lot about Josh Hoover at TCU. Kevin Jennings is every bit of exciting at SMU. Miller Moss, he's dynamic, transfer from USC at one point. Jalen Daniels, Darian Mensah. Darian Mensah was the top quarterback in the transfer portal coming out in the winter portal. He played last season at Tulane, was a huge reason why Tulane was a viable program. And Talon Green, one of the most exciting quarterbacks in the SEC. So I love this freaking tier, man. And this is something that, you look at and go, okay, well, yeah, he's getting some respect, right? And I love it because you put Diego Pavia, you put Vandy's quarterback situation into this group You have a playoff team in SMU. You have a bunch of bowl winners. You have Kansas, who's a resurgent program. They're kind of like the Vandy of the Big 12. They were doormats for a long time, but under Lance Leipold, they've really done some things with their program. So I'm a big fan of this list. I'm a big fan of kind of where they're going and the respect that Pavia has. I like this line right here where it says, Morton's health, Jennings' playoff performance, or whether Diego Pavia will have to leave film study early to take his grandkids to soccer practice. That's kind of a funny line because, get it, he's been around for a while. But here's some fun facts about Diego Pavia that you probably didn't know that probably would put last season into perspective. No returning Power 4 quarterback was blitzed more often last season than Diego Pavia. A lot of that was run blitz. A lot of that was situational. They knew that if they came after him on 3rd and long, that he couldn't handle it, or they thought he couldn't handle it, but Alabama figured out that he could. No returning quarterback had a higher successful play rate on red zone dropbacks last year than Diego Pavia. He did that at a clip of 50% of his red zone dropbacks were successful plays. So that's an impressive stat if you really think about it. So, you got to tip your cap there. And then, of course, Diego Pavia versus top 40 defenses last year, 78.8 quarterback ranking, 12 TDs, 3 interceptions, and 7 yards per dropback. So it seemed like he played his best when his best was needed. So what does this mean exactly? Okay, what does this list mean? Well, let me give you some of the other tiers, and I'll let you kind of compare. All right, just think about it. What does this list mean? What is your takeaway when you see this list? Because I think of it like this. They are saying that, this is the electric group. This is the playmaking group. This is the group that can be dangerous, but they're not quite in the upper class yet, but they can be absolutely dangerous. Well, tier 2 is pretty darned good. There's, you have Haynes King, who Diego Pavia beat, Rocco Beck, Connor Mobley. You have Sawyer Robinson and Sam Levitt. I don't know. I'd probably take 3 or 4 of these quarterbacks over this list. I get it with Haynes King. I get it with Sam Levitt. Levitt was a playoff guy, Georgia Tech. Big turnaround there. Sawyer Robertson, not sure. Rocco Beck, not real sure there. Tier 1B is so hot right now. You have DJ Lagway, Carson Beck, and Arch Manning. That's kind of a whole, like, let's see what they do. This is the unproven with Arch Manning, and the injury group with the other two, Carson Beck and DJ Lagway. Then you have tier 1, top of the class, Cade Klubnik, Garrett Nussmeier, John Mateer, Drew Aller, and Lenore Sellers, who Diego Pavia faces off against in his first conference game. So I really like this list of quarterbacks. I really think you could probably throw some of these tier 3 guys up there. Definitely in tier 2 for sure. Like, I think Pavia, I think Horvath, I think Jalen Daniels and Mensa, and for sure Taylon Green could all be tier 2 guys. I think those guys are quarterbacks that I think can lead. Diego Pavia, my biggest takeaway is that he did it with little to no help. He did it with one receiver, consistent receiver, and Quincy Skinner, who, if he makes the Falcons, like, he had kind of an up and down year last year. Super talented, just kind of had an up and down year. And he had Eli Stowers. That's about it. I guess you could say Junior Sherrill, maybe a little bit sometimes. You could say Quincy Skinner. Well, yeah, sometimes, right? They made plays here and there, but other times they didn't. You had one running back in Cedric Alexander. The rest of the guys got hurt or were just not factors. So the offense wasn't anywhere near as constructed as it is at this moment. So I think it's A, going to improve, and B, puts into perspective just how impressive Vanderbilt winning 7 games actually was and how close they were to winning 9. It's insane. But anyway, we're going to move to baseball here next, because this is a very special time of the season for the Vandy boys, and we get to throw out some accolades. So buckle up. All right, before we throw out any accolades, we're going to throw out this. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers a highlight-worthy performance. Major momentum shifts, can't-miss moments, whether it's a game-winning shot or breakout player. There's never been a better time to get in on the action. Guess what? FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game. Before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and same-game parlays, fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. And if you're going to bet on the Thunder and SGA, that's probably a pretty good bet for you. I don't know that you'll get great odds, but you'll hit that $5 bet that's going to get you 200 in bonus bets if you join now, right? I'm betting on the T-Wolves. I'm going to bet. Hell, I might take the Pacers. Tyrese Halliburton is an incredible man. But here's the thing. I think those guys. I'm gonna go there. I don't know if you should follow me on that, but anyway, it would be super dope if you turn $5 into $200 in bonus bets because you put it over under on Tyrese Halliburton's points. I don't know what those are going to be in game one of the Knicks against the Knicks. I'm not real sure. I haven't seen those lines yet, but you can check FanDuel for current playoff odds and player props and decide for yourself. Decide if you're going to go with me and Tyrese Halliburton. Anyway, if you're new to FanDuel, it's perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com, place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. So make every moment more with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. All right. Thanks for making Locked On Vandy your first listen. If you need a second listen, Locked On SEC is the place to go. Chris Gordy does a great job. SEC squad. We're always squadding up. If you need another listen other than that, if you don't want to listen to the entire SEC and you just need another team specific guys, well, Stephen Willis is your dude. Locked On Ole Miss. You may not care necessarily about Ole Miss, but guess what? If you listen to him, you'll get invested. I promise. It's tough not to listen to Steve and be like, oh gosh, you start to kind of get it, and like you're not an Ole Miss fan, but like now you're starting to form an opinion about Ole Miss. He brings great perspective. He does a phenomenal job there. There's a reason why he's the best in the Ole Miss stratosphere. So anyway, let's throw out some accolades, shall we? This team, I think they turned it around too little too late to really start racking up these accolades. I think there were some guys that I felt were close in some of these accolades, like Connor Fennell. I think if he didn't close the season the way he did, he probably would get some accolades there. Braden Holcomb, I think, came on a little too late. Struggled early in the season, couldn't put up quite the numbers to make the all-conference team, but he's somebody that if they shrink the sample size, he'd definitely be on it. RJ Austin as well. But just wanted to throw out these two guys right here. Shout out to Sawyer Hawks. He was all SEC second team relief pitcher. And Brody Johnston was a freshman all SEC second team as well. So shout out to these guys. Sawyer Hawks, man, he's an Air Force transfer. He has been absolutely lights out. This is something that, he struck out 51 batters, walked 8 just over the course of the season. He threw 40 and 2/3 innings over the course and just gave up only 7 runs. He had a regular season record of 4.0 with a 1.55 ERA. He had 6 saves and 15 appearances. Those are his numbers. That is absolutely impressive. And Tim Corbin said this about him. He can fulfill a lot of different roles on our staff. Most importantly, he wants the baseball. He's aggressive, fearless, confident, and competitive. He thrives in team and competitive environment. He has a great personality and has a connection piece with every member of the team. He's an excellent student and was also named to the Dean's List this past fall. What an all-around guy, man. And exactly what you want in a closer. Aggressive, fearless. He's going to come after you. He takes pride in striking you out, and he is going to pound it. He's going to pound the zone with a fastball. He's going to break you off with a slider. He's going to say, you know what, hit this. And he's going to, that's the kind of swagger he brings to that position. So I'm very stoked for him. He did a phenomenal job this year as a reliever. You get in those late innings, and all of a sudden, boom, he slams that freaking door shut. And it's all she wrote, man. So I don't know if he has a theme song or not. Maybe somebody can tell me. I feel like it would be like Mariano Rivera. Inner Sandman, or like you hear that first bit of music and you're like, all right, this game's over. Let's pack. This game's over. He comes in and he just completely slams the door. And then Brody Johnston, he was second team all freshman team. RJ Austin was all SEC defensive team as well in the conference's community service team. So that was good. But Brody Johnston finished the regular season with a .254 average, 12 homers, 14 doubles, and 51 runs batted in. He is also boasting a .936 fielding percentage in 51 appearances as well. He was not only named to the all-freshman team. I read a little bit further. Reading is great. But he was all SEC defensive team as well. Him and RJ Austin were all SEC defensive team. So RJ, sorry, buddy, left you out. But this team, I never would have thought a relief pitcher from Air Force and a freshman from Ooltewah, Tennessee would be leading this team to a lot of things. Like Sawyer Hawks breathes a lot of confidence in this pitching staff. It makes it to where the pressure is not quite as on. If you can get to the eighth inning, Sawyer Hawks is going to come in and close it down, right? So all you got to do is get to the eighth inning, and Hawks has got the rest of it. So the starters can relax a little bit, and once they get a quality start, they can get into the seventh inning, eighth inning, and they can bridge it to Sawyer Hawks. I think you've got a really good, talented bullpen, a bullpen that's more well-rested because, A, you're getting more quality starts from the starters, and B, Sawyer Hawks has benefited from it because he's been on a routine. He knows when he's coming in. He knows he's got an idea of when all this is going to happen, so that's great. Brody Johnston as well, as a freshman, just absolutely lighting it up. Somebody I didn't expect to come on so early, and he's somebody that is absolutely outstanding as well. So hats off to these guys. RJ Austin, all defensive team, but really you could make a case for RJ Austin for the all conference team. I'm really excited about that. This team's going to do great things, man. Like Thursday, getting the 4th seed, you get a matchup with Georgia. Like these guys are going to come in handy. And honestly, I think, you could have made some spots for like Jonathan Vastine. You could have made a spot, like I said, for Braden Holcomb, for Connor Fennell. J.D. Thompson could have got some love. I think their stats are right there on the cusp, but they just weren't quite there. So I'm very excited for this group, and this is a group that I think is going to thrive big time. So, hats off to them. Hats off to RJ Austin. Hats off to these guys for their contributions in the classroom. Hats off to their contributions in the community. Hats off to their contributions for this baseball team and a university that is so hungry for another championship, for a competitive team. And, a university that's gone through a few rough seasons since COVID in all sports. Like basketball's been pretty pitiful. Football up until then has been pretty pitiful. So, it's finally a breath of fresh air that the football team won 7 games. Basketball went to the NCAA tournament. The Vandy boys are poised to, or actually the women's team went to the NCAA tournament. Vandy boys are poised to make an Omaha run. That would cap off kind of a very successful bounce back year for Vanderbilt athletics. So hats off to them. Hats off to these guys for leading the charge. And there's so many other deserving guys, but not everybody can get those awards. So, but yeah, so this is kind of where we are. What was the key? What was the biggest key to the turnaround? How did we feel that this happened? And what are we thinking? What's the secret sauce, really? That's the questions you have to ask yourself. We'll talk about what that secret sauce is next. All right, wrapping up the show here on Locked On Vandy. Thanks for making us your first listen. Thank you to the everydayers. And if you're still around, thank you to the third segment, the loyal third segment people. It's a lot of fun right now, and it's a lot of fun to be a Vandy fan because basketball absolutely crushed it in the transfer portal. Football is amazing right now. The roster is as loaded as it's ever been, and you have a superstar at tight end and a superstar quarterback. And I think you have a team that's poised to really do some damage against arguably one of the toughest schedules in the country. And then, of course, the Vandy boys are about to make a run. And earlier in the season, it looked like it was going to be, and I said this last night, it looked like it was going to be not good, right? It just looked like it wasn't going to be good. It looked like it was going to be, oh crap, here we go again. Can pitch, but can't hit, or can hit, but can't pitch. Like, it was one of those things where you just could never put anything together. And it was mostly hitting. Like, the hitting, it just seemed like everybody was tight. Everybody was trying too hard. And it just didn't, it seemed very clunky. It seemed very just stiff. It seemed very whatever. So when I read about this, and, 247 does a phenomenal job, by the way. Shout out to them, to Vandy 247. Those guys, it's the old Rivals guys that came over. It's good people, right? All the Rivals guys came over, and then of course the stock was lifted because, they're OG Rivals guys. Shout out to Rivals. But, Joey Dwyer, my guy, did an article on this and talked about how the turnaround was sparked. And I didn't know it was quite sparked like this. I knew it was right around this time, but it was during the Oklahoma season. This is where they got their chip. This is where they said enough's enough. And they were pissed. They were embarrassed. They were whatever. And they were like, God, and they had a players only meeting, and some things were talked about, and those players only meetings can be hit or miss sometimes, right? They can be very just for show, right? Because I've been involved in some players only meetings, and it's just a bunch of guys that are like, they pretend to be serious, and they don't really, nothing really ever happens. They just get up there and yell a whole bunch, and doesn't really have much substance. So we just, I've been on a team where that happened, and we just got shellacked every other game besides that, because nobody actually believed in the seniors during this players only meeting. And I've been involved in another one to where it did actually pay some dividends. It did actually wake us up. And it wasn't one where people were screaming at each other. It was just very calm, very matter of fact, very just whatever we're doing is not working. And I think the way it was approached, people bought in. And so we turned around. We didn't go, it wasn't one of those made for the big screen type seasons where it galvanized us and we went out and won a state championship. We just went out and, won more games than we probably should have. We played a lot better football. It was in the sport of, it was in football for this. And we just played together more. We had more fun. We just played better. We won more games than we should have. And it didn't net us any playoff. It didn't get us any huge results, but it just made it more enjoyable. And that was kind of the point of it. So Vanderbilt had a players only meeting. Here's what was said. This was the gist of it, right? There was a lot more it was a little bit deeper than this, but this is kind of the biggest takeaway here. And it was RJ Austin who said this quote, but he said, "We just came to the conclusion that we just got to come out here and have fun and just be us. We're not trying to be a team that was here before." He went on to say, obviously coming to Vanderbilt, you want to recreate those things, but we're different talent. We're a different team. So we knew we just had in trying to win games and just be us, right? And there was another team that did this, and they were galvanized to win a championship. And I'm not trying to compare them to the 2004 Boston Red Sox, but I'm going to compare them to the 2004 Boston Red Sox, because this is a similar situation to where you have a team that was struggling to find themselves, and they were tight, and they were just stuck in the Yankees shadow, and it was a team that just needed something. And they had the perfect manager for it. Not saying, Tim Corbin's different from Terry Francona personality-wise, but they had the perfect manager for it. They had the perfect group of guys. They came together. They had a very similar players-only meeting, and they came together, and they actually they ended up winning the World Series that year. And they had some adversity along the way, but they were able to draw back on what they talked about in that meeting. Is like, hey, if we're going to go down, we got to be us. We can't try to go up there and try to be the perfect team. We can't try to recreate those other teams. We can't fall into this. We got to beat the Yankees. We got to beat the Yankees. We got to beat the Yankees. Like, they can't fall into that trap, right? This team is very much like that. Like, I think early in the season, you wear the Vanderbilt name across your chest, and you feel like you have to live up to the standard that 2014 set and 2019 set. You have to live up to those standards. Those were very business-like, matter-of-fact, uber-talented teams that just went out there and just beat you. And that was like the quintessential Tim Corbin team, where it was built, it was developed, and they were just freaking machines, dude. And I think early on, this team felt like they needed to be that. At least it felt like it to me. It may be different, but they felt like they needed to be that. And they're not that. It's a bunch of young guys, bunch of transfers, bunch of guys that come in. All these guys have personalities, big personalities. They all like to have fun. They all like to joke. They all like to just play. And then, of course, they play with edge too. With that, it's a new era of baseball, and I love it. You've got a villain out in Knoxville, right? You've got Kentucky was a villain at some point this season. They were pissing some people off. Oklahoma was a villain. I think there was a little bit of dust-ups between Vandy and Oklahoma. That's what kind of sparked all of this. But the quote is, the biggest part of this quote is, or the biggest parts is, we just got to come out here and have fun and just be us. And you know what that did? They just relaxed. They played with edge. I know that seems kind of contradictory a little bit, but like, you play with a little bit of edge, it means you're playing with a little bit of fun too, and you get some enjoyment out of it, and you get those competitive juices going. Of course, there's going to be a little bit of edge. There's going to be a little bit of chip on your shoulder type mentality, but they just went out there and they just had uber confidence at that point. They go in against Georgia and sweep Georgia. They had a similar fate on the road against Ole Miss right after this team meeting, because they just hadn't quite. It takes time, obviously, and they shellacked Ole Miss on that Sunday. I think that's when they woke up. That's when they really fully woke up, was against Ole Miss on that Sunday game where they were avoiding a sweep and they came out and just shellacked Ole Miss. But this team is just a lot more fun. They look like they're enjoying it a lot more. They look more relaxed at the plate, which when you're relaxed at the plate and you're not trying to just like find the perfect pitch or hit it in the perfect place or whatever, you just play more relaxed. You just have more confidence, and you hit the ball into gaps. You start driving the ball over the fence. You start scoring runs. And when you start scoring runs, your pitching can be more relaxed, and those guys start to have fun. And all of a sudden, you've got 20 different handshakes in the handshake line after a win. You're having fun. You get Tim Corbin to crack a few smiles. You get to beat those guys out east. The evil empire, I guess you could say, Tennessee. You get to beat those guys, and you get to kind of reclaim baseball as your sport. And it just, all it took was a team realizing that, hey, we're pretty damn good, and we're going to have fun doing it, and we're just going to play with a lot of confidence. And and it wasn't fake confidence, right? The confidence was sparked by them just realizing, guys, we're overthinking this. And I don't know what kind of meeting it was. I don't think that's ever going to get out there as to what the tone of the meeting was, as to how it went down, how the message was delivered. However, the message was this, and it's been abundantly clear through the way they're playing, and obviously through this article, is we need to have fun. We're not having fun. We're too stiff. We're robotic. We're overthinking it. And we're not very confident. And it just went from there. The pitcher's like, guys, we're pitching lights out. Give us a little bit of run support. And the hitters are like, guys, you're pitching lights out. We're not doing enough for you. We're trying too hard. We're just going to go out there and let it rip, man. And that's been the best thing. Grip it. Like, I never thought in the day and age of analytics and baseball being such an analytics-driven sport that I would say grip it and rip it would actually win out. But grip it and rip it has actually won out. And I'm going to leave it there. Grip it and rip it has been the greatest thing to happen to Vanderbilt since 2019. And this team is special because of it now. They're more relaxed, they're more confident, and they're more dangerous. So watch out for them. They're going to have fun. But speaking of which, I'm going to have fun. I'm going to take a night off after this. Just a little quick programming note. We do have graduation that is going to kind of cut into graduation is like a day-long event where I'm at, because you have practice, you have adjustments to like the program, because I do the digital design work for the program. There's all kind of things involved with graduation that I have to be involved with. So this is going to be one of my weekend days coming up, but with the SEC tournament likely running into the weekend, with Vanderbilt having a really good shot at making a quality run, I'll probably just slide my shows around this week. So there's going to be kind of a gap day, and then I'll try to pick back up later on down in the week. So just stay tuned for that. But until then, anchor down. Peace out. We gone.